On February 24, 2022, Russian President Vladimir Putin launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, sending nearly 200,000 troops across the border. The Kremlin expected a rapid victory, believing Russian forces could capture the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, within days, overthrow President Volodymyr Zelensky's government, and return Ukraine to Russia's sphere of influence. However, the invasion did not go as planned. Ukraine mounted fierce resistance, preventing Russia from achieving its main objective. Although Russia managed to seize significant territory, particularly in eastern and southern Ukraine, it failed to take control of Kyiv or remove Ukraine's elected government. Before launching the invasion, Putin claimed the operation was necessary to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. He also argued that Russian-speaking people in eastern Ukraine needed protection from the government in Kyiv. Western governments and Ukraine strongly rejected these claims, describing them as false justifications for the invasion. The roots of the conflict go back to 2014, when Ukraine's pro-Russian president Viktor Yanukovych was removed from power following months of mass protests. Shortly afterward, Russia annexed Crimea and backed separatist forces in the eastern regions of Donetsk and Luhansk, beginning a conflict that lasted for years before expanding into a full-scale war in 2022. Putin has repeatedly questioned Ukraine's sovereignty, claiming that Russians and Ukrainians are one people, and arguing that modern Ukraine was historically created by Russia. These statements have led many analysts to believe that Moscow's long-term objective extends beyond territorial gains and includes restoring Russian influence over Ukraine. Another major issue has been NATO. Russia has consistently opposed Ukraine's ambition to join the Western military alliance, arguing that NATO's expansion toward Russia's borders threatens its national security. Ukraine and NATO, however, maintain that every independent nation has the right to choose its own security partnerships. Since the beginning of the war, the United States, European countries, and other allies have supplied Ukraine with military equipment, financial assistance, intelligence, and humanitarian aid. Russia has accused NATO of becoming directly involved in the conflict, while NATO insists it is supporting Ukraine's self-defense without becoming a participant in the war itself. Despite years of fighting, neither side has achieved a decisive victory. Russia continues to control parts of Ukrainian territory, while Ukraine has repeatedly defended key cities and launched counteroffensives to reclaim occupied areas. The conflict has become one of the largest and most destructive wars in Europe since World War II. More than 4 years after Russia's full-scale invasion began, the war continues with no clear end in sight. The front line stretches for over 1,000 kilometers across eastern and southern Ukraine, where both Russian and Ukrainian forces remain locked in intense battles. Several international efforts have been made to negotiate peace. The United States has played a leading role in mediation, with multiple rounds of talks involving Russian and Ukrainian officials. A high-profile summit between President Donald Trump and President Vladimir Putin in Alaska also failed to produce a breakthrough. The main obstacle remains Russia's demand that Ukraine accept Russian control over occupied territories, a condition Kyiv firmly rejects. President Volodymyr Zelensky has remained the central figure of Ukraine's wartime leadership. According to Ukrainian officials, Russian forces attempted to eliminate him during the early days of the invasion. Zelensky refused to leave Kyiv, becoming a symbol of Ukraine's resistance. Meanwhile, the Kremlin continues to question his legitimacy and refuses to hold direct negotiations with him under current conditions. The war has caused devastating human suffering. Tens of thousands of Ukrainian and Russian soldiers have been killed or wounded, while thousands of civilians have also lost their lives. Millions of Ukrainians have fled their homes, with many seeking refuge across Europe and millions more remaining internally displaced inside Ukraine. Economically, both countries have suffered enormous damage. Ukraine has seen large parts of its industrial infrastructure destroyed, while repeated attacks on energy facilities have disrupted daily life and economic activity. Russia, meanwhile, faces international sanctions, high inflation, rising military spending, and growing economic pressure as the conflict continues. Despite these challenges, Ukraine continues to receive substantial military and financial support from Western allies, helping it maintain its defense and government operations. Russia, on the other hand, continues to expand its military production and seeks to strengthen partnerships with countries willing to continue trade despite Western sanctions. Many experts believe that a lasting peace will only be possible through direct negotiations. However, the positions of both sides remain far apart. Ukraine insists that its internationally recognized territory cannot be surrendered permanently, while Russia continues to demand international recognition of territories it claims to have annexed. As the war enters another year, it remains one of the most significant geopolitical conflicts of the 21st century. Its outcome will shape the future of European security, international relations, and the global balance of power for years to come. Until both sides find common ground, the conflict is expected to continue with heavy military, economic, and humanitarian consequences.